So Abby, in the past, we've talked about cleaners, like organizing your digital estate. The one thing that we've also, you and I have talked about many, many times is what a digital executor is and what it does. So like, well, you know what an executor does, right? Some people might not. If you want to explain what an executor does for your will, what's that person do?
Well, the executor is the person that you designate to carry out the wishes that you've specified in the instructions that you've specified in your will. Digital executor can be the same person, but it could also be somebody different that you choose specifically to handle and carry out the digital estate planning components of your plan.
Yep.
Right? Like what you want done with your digital assets.
Yep. What you want done with them. And what's interesting is if you remember back way early on in our lives, 10 years ago, how it was kind of a separate thing where digital and physical was very separate. And we've watched over the past decade how it's kind of come together, where a lot of times people are starting to consider the digital assets the same way as a physical. And again, a physical would be your computer and the digital would be the files on your computer. And you want to make sure that you make some kind of plan for your accounts and those types of things, and naming someone to do this. While it used to be something you'd probably do on the side or you'd add it into your will, a lot of times when you're creating a will, they'll ask you. They'll start accounting for it so it's baked into your will. And as you said, you might want it to be the same person, but maybe you're like, this person's, like, why would you name a different person if you name someone like as your executor to deal with your home and your money and all that stuff, as opposed to, and then a different one for your digital?
I might not. I might. I guess the one reason would be if there, somebody who's dealing with your digital estate might get access to things like your email or your files, or maybe they don't get access, but I don't know. It just might be a different person in my life who I would choose to handle my financial, accounts and assets versus my digital property. It might be the same person.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going through like the perfect legal channels and you're doing it in probate, which is basically where everything gets settled, because we talk about things, and in the past we've talked about like a trust. Like, how do you skip probate? That's basically where they take everything you have, your executor puts together a list of everything, you submit it to the court, they make sure, then people can collect against debts and other things and creditors or old medical bills, and then after that, whatever's left over, that's what's distributed. That's money. But when it comes to like your Facebook account or something like that, it's not really money. All your photos of your family isn't really money. It's kind of something you'd want someone to be able to go in and deal with right now. And one of the issues.
Well, what about cryptocurrency? Where does crypto
falls in money?
It
should fall right into money, even though it's all digital. Like, it's worth something. If anything's worth anything, even if you own a lot of URLs, you have sites or properties, if you have money in your eBay account, like any money has to be split up because like, let's say, your daughters are dealing with your estate at some point, and one sees, wow, mom had like $8,000 in her eBay account. I'm just going to transfer that to my account. And the other one's like, wait, I should get half of that. No, I got there first. It's like, no, you just stole. That's criminal. I'm taking you to court. And then, Danny's suing Winnie, and it becomes like really out of control. But when it comes to like all your other stuff, when you look at your digital, like shutting down those things, they also might have to deal with the companies. If you want to go the route of like contacting Facebook, contacting Google, contacting Apple, going through like the procedures.
Wow. Being a digital executor sounds like a huge pain in the ass. I don't think I want to be somebody's digital executor.
That's the thing. But here's the way around it. Because in a way, it's not even, it could be something I name that person, but in reality, it's still outside because they haven't folded it all in. We see legislation about anything digital is just a mess right now. But it's saying, okay, how do we get the basics so someone can get access? But then the companies each have their own rules. So, like banking has like rules. You can't just go into a bank and be like, give me the money. They're going to be like, you go through this procedure. We have to make sure it's transferred properly. But the rules for Google are completely different than the rules for Facebook, that are completely different than the rules from Amazon. So everyone has their own. And a lot of times you say, well, instead of going through all these procedures, because the companies, they don't want people sharing accounts for security reasons. And because they just want each person being accounted for, with one single account. So they don't want you going into your husband's account and like shutting it down or messing around as if you were him. But the reality is to do it quickly. If it's not important to you, then get it done that way. I mean, that's why sharing the passwords and doing that. And for a digital executor, you might want to say, this is kind of outside of the legal stuff. I'm not putting this in my will. I'm not putting it there. Or
Right.
I'd say I put instructions separately what we should do. And this is why in Everplans, we always said, like, why is, password managers are really good for passwords, but they're not good for instructions. And for us,
Right.
how do you do the
What I always
instructions?
tell Yeah, what I always tell people is first make a
Mm-hmm.
list of all of the digital assets that you even have. Everything from the hardware to the software to the domain names to the any online accounts that you have, any social media accounts. We talk about this all the time. First, figure out what you have. Then figure out what you want done with each one of those things. Or if you don't care about, a whole category of things, just let the person know that. Document all of that, and then make sure. I mean, you can of course use Everplans to do this, but there's other places that you could at least just make these instructions and wishes known, so that somebody knows what to do, because it becomes this
Mm-hmm.
mountain of stuff to have to figure out in the event that you have to figure it out. And it's just like the amount of digital stuff that we've all accumulated is just
Yeah.
massive. I mean, everything from the photos to the videos. I mean, this is like a big deal
Yeah.
now.
And some of it, and when people think, wow, I have so many accounts, like, first pick out the important ones, because most of the stuff we have is useful now. And it's not like, if you have like a food delivery place and you just use it to deliver food and you're not going to need it anymore, you're like, I don't need, like, just get rid of it. If you use, again, eBay every once in a while, or Etsy, because you're like, I bought a cute little dog tag on Etsy and I haven't used it in 7 years, like, screw it, like, get rid of it.
Actually, that's kind of interesting though, Gene. I was just thinking about if like one of my, you know, it, if somebody I loved were to die,
Mm-hmm.
like somebody I was really, really close with, I would probably, I don't know about you, but I would probably be super sentimental about looking at their prior Postmates orders and being like, oh,
That's
last
great.
Friday they ordered Chinese food, and here's exactly what they ordered, their dumplings, and like that would be
That
my
is
personality. I would like go through
really
all of their stuff.
that's a really interesting thing too, to look at like past orders and histories, because on Amazon it'll be like probably not exciting, maybe a gift here and there, but looking at old Uber Eats orders or old Grubhub orders, that could be really cute. You're right. It could say like, oh, this was their meal that they got there, even though maybe they got it and they hated it and that's what made them sick. Like,
Right. Well, hopefully not, but
but
yeah.
that's cute. And I think when people are spending the time to do it, you shouldn't get bogged down. And I think the maximum you should spend on the most important account, it could take 15 minutes. And the least amount of time that you should spend on something is under like 10 or 15 seconds, where you just say, you know what? I used that Nike account because I got a discount on sneakers once. I don't care about it. Let it go. I used that one AOL account for years and I had it, but I never check it. It's just a spam throwaway email. Let it go. But something like Google, Microsoft, Apple, ones where you have the photos or you have services you're paying for regularly that have your bank statements, that how people can reset passwords, that you say, this account is vital. And here's why it's vital, because you're going to get all my emails, you're going to see all my photos. That's where you take them. But also, you might want to put little caveats in there, like, please don't snoop much. Don't like use this as a way to go through my whole life and snoop. Abby, maybe if you're looking at my old order histories, you're going to snoop and like search for your name in my email. And again, once you're gone, it's up to you. You're like, I don't care. But sometimes it could be someone that you want to choose who has discretion, that's going to know, I'm not going to find something they may have said about someone else in the family or a friend and then send it to them just to start something. That's
Right.
where you have to worry. Is the person you're naming really discreet and thoughtful, or are they a busybody who's going to use this as ammunition to be like, oh, look, I have proof that our other sibling did hate you and here's all these emails, and you're like, oh, really? It just starts trouble. So make sure it's someone who can be discreet, like a cleaner, but also someone that has digital they have some kind of digital knowledge. That's why a lot of times, because for executors, for court, you're going to need a lawyer. Like, no one can really figure that out unless you have a really small estate and it can go through quick and you don't have to go to court.
Right. And you need to pick somebody that you
Yes.
trust. I mean, first and foremost, just somebody you trust. And then they can, even if they don't know how to be a good executor, they could also figure out how how to get you one.
Yes. And even if it's like,
Like,
clear the computer and reformat it and then give it as a gift, or give it to one of the grandkids, or give it to someone. Like there's things you could do. And there's also things where we notice people that play on iPads. A lot of times kids will play on their grandparents' iPads and they like play games together. So you want to make sure that you still have access to that, and you want to have the passwords separate so they could access. So maybe you could go in and quickly reset it. Because if you have a Kindle, like Amazon, if you have a Kindle and you just add it, change it to someone else's on the account, they're not going to care. They're like, look, as long as you keep the Kindle and the books, as long as it's going 1-to-1, we don't care. They have household plans where you could share things among a whole household. It's not a really big deal. You don't want to make a huge case of it. But you also don't want that sitting in like a box for the next 5 years. And one day you find it. You're like, wow, I would have liked to done something with this. So making the plan for things that are important, and things that aren't, just throw them to the side. And it shouldn't take, again, much time. If you're spending more than 15 minutes on an account, then
totally.
you're going too deep into it. And maybe you can return to it and say, okay, I want to do my Gmail, then I want to do documents where I keep them, and I want to do photos, and I want to do the videos. But I also think it could be cute, even like an old YouTube playlist, and say, hey, what videos did they watch most frequently? You could find like music videos that they watch, comedy clips that they found funny. Because yes,
Spotify,
Spotify is perfect playlists that they put together. Yep. And you could find fun things, but a lot of times it's not as strict as an executor, because the rules aren't really set, and there's never, at least I don't foresee every digital company aligning themselves perfectly and saying, okay, how you close a Facebook account is the same way you close a Google account, the same way you close an iCloud, the same way you close Microsoft. Everything is separate now, and nothing is really jibing together. So to do it properly really shouldn't take that much time, but also you don't want an account to sit there forever, because in that time, sometimes they just delete them. Like if you have an account, if you don't check your Gmail for a certain amount of time, they're going to assume, okay, no one's checked this. You haven't been online. It's no longer necessary. You're taking up space on our servers. You're gone. We need people that are living. And that's another thing. The companies, they don't, it's pretty harsh, but they don't make money off people that aren't alive. Like they're not making, once someone's off their service, they're not using it regularly. They're not sharing things. They're not buying things. So in reality, you kind of, they're kind of a problem that they don't know how to deal with. So it's never going to be a priority for them. But if it's someone you care that it is.
Yes. Make a list, figure it all out, figure out what you have, figure out how you want to handle it, mm-hmm. and get it done.
Yep. And if you're doing a will, which you should, it might be a component in there. And if not, make it one. Put it on the side and do it as a separate thing. And finally, never put passwords in a will. Never share any passwords, because wills become public documents. And if you have them out there, there's a chance that you're not going to get around to changing those passwords. Someone else will see them and be able to hack and steal your identity. And we've also seen people who have stolen the identity of Twitter accounts of people that are no longer alive and just use them to spam people. So if there's any value, if you have a lot of followers, if it's something that's important to you, I know Winnie has a TikTok account. For all you know, it's going to be one of the biggest ever. You're going to want to make sure that's protected, because, that's part of who she is.